Recent reports have shown that not only does Zach Lavine not have interest in coming to the New York Knicks, but the New York Knicks do not have interest in Zach Lavine coming to the team, and also the Knicks may be interested in Detroit Pistons star Bojan Bogdanovic, and we are going to break this down. So welcome back to Knicks Digest, guys. My name is Chris, and we're going to jump right into things as we always do, starting with Zach Lavine, and then we will move into the Bojan Bogdanovic part of this video. So let's go right ahead and do that, guys, because the New York Knicks have zero interest and the Chicago Bulls star Zach Lavine. And this is sort of surprising to see because once upon a time it felt like the Knicks really did have interest in Lavine and that it could be possible that the New York Knicks would make a Zach Lavine move. However, things sort of fizzled out on that front, and part of the reason is because Zach Lavine became a member of Clutch Sports. Now, once upon a time, I said that Zach Lavine was a CAA client, which was a mistake on my part. He is a Clutch Sports agent, but we can forget that. That was a long time ago now. That was a few weeks ago. What's important here is that the Knicks and Zach Lavine do not have interest in each other anymore. Lavine does not want to play for a Leon Rose team. Leon Rose was the head agent of CAA, which is Creative Artists Agency, which is a rival with Clutch Sports. Those are two of, if not the two biggest agencies in the NBA today. So Lavine would rather play for a Clutch team or just a team not as affiliated with CAA. And I think it's also a way that Zach Lavine can get to the Lakers. However, that is a completely separate video that Lakers Digest can handle. Shout out to Lakers Digest. That's not our area. But what our area is basically going to report that Zach Lavine does not want to come to the Knicks and that the Knicks don't want him. And if you look here, a source reiterated to the New York Post this week that Lavine's camp would prefer to not go to a Leon Rose squad. It doesn't completely rule out a trade. A deal can't be stopped because Lavine does not have a no-trade clause, but the Knicks, beyond whatever landmines they would hope to avoid by acquiring a player under those circumstances, aren't a good fit. Now, that New York Post article also talks briefly about how Scott Perry, former New York Knicks GM, who worked with Leon Rose, said that when you're trading for a disgruntled star, this was in regards to Donovan Mitchell, I believe, if you're going to point it towards any player. But what Scott Perry essentially was saying is that if you go for a disgruntled star, there is a good chance that once you acquire them, they are still going to be disgruntled. Now thinking about that, that could also be very much aimed towards James Harden, who though was never a Knick. We've seen the man get upset with Houston, wish for the old Houston days, and then get traded to the Brooklyn Nets. They were not the same. He did not like them. He didn't have fun there. He ended up getting traded to the 76ers. Where it seemed like he was happy for all of 25 minutes, and then everything went down the tubes because him and Daryl Morey, their wonderful relationship got broken. James Harden felt like Morey lied to him, and Daryl Morey was like, I'm not giving you a max contract, you don't deserve one. And now James Harden is on the Clippers, and we are yet to see how that works out long term. Short term, things have not been great, obviously. Though Harden is playing efficient basketball despite the fact that his stats do not look well. However, I digress. This is about Zach Lavine. And what we're seeing here is a New York Knicks team that does not need Zach Lavine. And that's not any shade towards Zach. He's a tremendous player. He is having a bad season, but that can be boiled down to the fact that the Chicago Bulls in general are playing badly. They really don't have a point guard on the roster. Zach Lavine's a player who is much more suited to play with an elite point guard, or at least a good floor general like Lonzo Ball. And they don't have Ball. Ball's been out since early 2021. I believe January 15th, around then of 2021 is the last time that Lonzo Ball played an NBA game. He's not playing one this season, and that kind of messes with the Bulls' season. The Bulls should blow it up. It's the only move that makes sense for them. And Zach Lavine is essentially the head of that team. It's his basketball team. I know people are going to say it's DeRozan's team. DeRozan has been better than Lavine since he arrived. However, this is still a Zach Lavine team. And I don't think the Knicks are going to go for him because if you look here, these are Zach Lavine's stats on the season. He's averaging 22 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists. He's shooting 43% from the field and 34% from 3. All of those lower than normal, including his PER, which is a 16.4. Not Lavine's best season by far, and I really am going to boil it down to the fact that the Bulls are a mess right now. I don't think Zach Lavine is regressing. I don't think any of that is happening. There's no signs that that's what's happening. I just think the Bulls are miserable. The players don't trust Billy Donovan. The front office is a mess. They have no point guard. The team is in shambles, and no one is playing at their best, and no one is happy. And I think Zach Lavine is much more unhappy than given credit for, and I do think he'll be traded, but I think there's no way he'd be traded to the Knicks, because I don't see a way where the Bulls do not ask for R.J. Barrett in this trade, and look at R.J. Barrett's numbers on this season. Obviously, many less games played because of the migraine and the knee injury, But Barrett's averaging 21.6 points per game, three rebounds, 3 assists. He's shooting 47% from the field and 46.5% from three on 84% free throw shooting. All of those are career highs. And his PER is a 19.5, which is some of the best of his career. So, absolutely, RJ's balling out. He's having a better season than Zach Lavine. I'm not saying that RJ Barrett is better than Zach Lavine right now, but he is better than Zach Lavine right now because Levine's not happy with his situation, and that's clearly affecting his play. Maybe this is just the new RJ Barrett, though, and maybe he is better than Zach Lavine because he's also an elite defender on top of all of this. Who am I to say? I'm not going to judge based off the first 15 games of Levine's season with a team that is a wreck. So we'll see where this goes. But the Knicks shouldn't even trade RJ for Zach Lavine straight up right now is really where I'm going with this, and I think that would be a mistake. So Zach Lavine's off the table. This is probably the last time that we're going to talk about a Zach Lavine trade in a while, unless he gets traded to a team like the Philadelphia 76ers. And in that case, we may make a video just kind of talking about how that affects the New York Knicks, because the Sixers are in their division and in their conference. However, I do think we will see Lavine get traded to a Western Conference team more likely than an Eastern Conference team. But if it's an Eastern Conference team, it's either the Knicks division rival in the 76ers, or it's just the Knicks general Eastern Conference rival in the Miami Heat. So that's the only chance that we ever see a Zach Lavine topic come up in the near future on Knicks Digest. So thank you, Zach Lavine, for the news, but now it's time to move on to Bojan Bogdanovic. And essentially, multiple teams are expected to pursue Detroit's Bojan Bogdanovic once he is cleared for a return from injury. Miami and New York are two teams to monitor. Miami and New York are usually named because they're big cities. I don't think that's shocking news. That's why that siren is going off, is because it might be a little bit of a trade siren, but it also could be a bit of a sign that, hey, don't get ahead of yourselves. And I actually think Bojan Bogdanovic would help the Knicks a ton. I think he's a great shooter. He's an above-average defender. He plays good. He's a good veteran. He's had a lot of experience on winning teams. He's been in the NBA for around 10 years now. I think exactly 10 years. He came into the Brooklyn Nets in the 2013-14 season. So this is year 10 for him. He's 34 years old, still an over 40% shooter from three. He fits the Knicks super well, and he also gives them a guy who can come off the bench and really play power forward over Josh Hart. But there's no real world in which you can actually get Bojan Bogdanovic, not give up one of your 9 rotational players now, and play Bogdanovic the minutes that he would need to play to have a positive impact on the New York Knicks. And now let's go through it. Who would the Knicks certainly not trade for Bojan Bogdanovic? Jalen Brunson, Julius Randle, Mitchell Robinson, RJ Barrett. Those 4 would never get traded because they are the 4 best players on the Knicks. Now, if we go deeper into this, Dante DiVincenzo just signed, cannot be traded till December 15th, and I don't think they're going to trade him anyway because they really like him. Josh Hart just re-signed. He cannot be traded till December 15th, and I don't think that they're going to trade Josh Hart either. So that leaves you with really just Isaiah Hartenstein, who the money does not work out, so he's not going to get traded. That's 8. That's 8. And then there's Emmanuel Quickly. And Quentin Grimes. And essentially, when looking at these guys, what we're seeing is that none of them should be traded for Bojan Bogdanovic. They're all younger. Anyone who could get traded for Bogdanovic, which is really just Quickly or Grimes, those are the only 2 guys who are in the rotation who it would even be possible to see it happening maybe, because they'd obviously get paired with Evan Fournier and maybe some sort of protected first. And that would be the trade. But I don't really think the Knicks should do that. I just don't see a point to it. I don't see a point in trading a guy 10 years younger than Bogdanovic for Bogdanovic while you're also giving up a draft pick. It doesn't fully make sense to me. I think that another team will want him more and actually go for him more just because the Knicks don't have room for him. The Knicks have the best bench in the NBA, and because of that, it's going to be hard to add guys for bench purposes because they don't need that. And that's what Bogdanovic would be. He wouldn't get a starting job over anyone starting right now. And I guess Grimes would make the most sense to trade, but that feels like half a step forward and then 3 steps backwards, because what you're doing is you're trading for a guy who's better than Quentin Grimes today. However, the Knicks are not contending for an NBA championship this season, and Bogdanovic is probably in the last year or 2 of his prime before Grimes does become the better player because of age and Grimes getting better and Bogdanovic going to slow down because he's 34. You just lose Quentin Grimes in that. That feels like a classic Knicks move that Isaiah Thomas would make, and I just do not think that is something that would happen. I do not think that is realistic. And as much as I think Bogdanovic would help the Knicks, it just doesn't feel like there's a feasible trade out there that would make sense for the Knicks unless they were giving up a player to where they'd be getting assets back and also Bogdanovic, and that doesn't feel realistic. So I don't think the Knicks will get Bojan Bogdanovic. I do think he will be traded, but not to the New York Knicks because the Knicks do not need any more bench help. The bench is the best bench in the NBA as it is. So it would be hard to make a move to improve their bench at all without just sacrificing a young player that does not need to be sacrificed for a 34-year-old on a team that has the average age of 26. Doesn't make sense to me. That's all that we have time for today, so thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. We will have a post-game tonight. I'm filming this on Monday soon before the Minnesota Timberwolves game. This is going to come out pretty much directly after that I stop filming it. So you'll see this around 3:30, and then we're going to have a Timberwolves game starting at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and Dario and I are going to jump on a post-game. Make sure to tune in for that. Like this video, subscribe to the channel. It helps us out a ton, and I will catch you guys tonight after the Knicks beat the Minnesota Timberwolves. That's right, I said it. Have a great day, and go Knicks!